Thank you for joining me.
Happy Mother's Day.
Wow, thank you. Honestly, no one wished me Happy Mother's Day, despite the fact that I have a baby.
You have a baby. Who's your baby?
My puppy, Marshmallow.
Mm-hmm. Isn't his name Fluffy because he was
That's his slave name.
That's his slave name? That's his Toby? His name is Akunta Kinte? That's his Neanderthal?
His African name is Marshmallow.
Okay.
And white people call him Fluffy.
Meanwhile, just for clarity, she's speaking about a Maltese that wears 4 pounds, a dog that was bred for white British royalty.
That is besides the point.
No one ever tells me Happy Mother's Day as a cis black male, as a cis hetero.
How do you
black
feel
male,
about that?
As a cis het, as the girls with dreads say on Twitter.
Yeah. Do you feel oppressed? Like, how are you feeling?
I feel like as a cis hetero black male, I don't deserve love. I think anything more than a butcher knife to the neck from a black woman is privilege.
Wow. Wow. This got dark so quickly. Speaking of...
There we go. That's a transition if I've ever goddamn seen one.
I know. Let's just transition into today's episode. Are these episodes? Or since this isn't a podcast, what is it? And does it have to be anything? Yeah, what are we doing here?
I can't tell if you're talking about the podcast or like the state of existence.
I'm screaming. Well, what's the difference?
Right.
Does anything have boundaries or limits? Isn't everything just everything? No, I'm talking about this recording that we're doing.
Okay. I don't know what it is. And I think that the second you know what something is, the second they can sell t-shirts about it in Hot Topic. So what's the point of naming things?
True. So this is just us yelling into the void.
That's another great name. Wow, cranking them out today.
I know. I'm really on a roll. Okay, well, everyone who's listening, welcome to The Void. Today we're talking about... Actually, I don't even want to tell you. You'll just figure it out as we go. How do we get into this conversation? How did this begin? I think you and I both have somewhat of like a fascination with the idea of freedom.
Yeah.
I think it was a few months ago where I think you were upset about something and I was like, oh, don't even worry about it. Like, none of us have free will anyway, so you couldn't have done. Well, you shouldn't do what?
Tell me I don't have free will.
Why?
No, it changed my life. Never mind. Continue. I cut you off.
No, like, well, yeah. Okay, so you spiraled for a few weeks after we had our first conversation. Really? Are you still spiraling? That's so interesting. Why did you have such a visceral reaction to being told that actually you are just a mere puppet? You couldn't have done anything other than what you did, because if you could, then you would, but you didn't, so you couldn't. And all of your actions are predetermined by prior causes.
Yeah. So
there's literally nothing to worry about. Like, isn't that so freeing? Like, why does that stress you out? But also, why does that stress anyone out? Like, why do people...
It's not stress. That's not the negative
Oh,
emotion.
Is it anxiety?
Nope.
Is it angst?
None of those things. It is listlessness. Ooh, that was a tough one. And like lethargia. All right, I think basically there's all these like self-help gurus and like books about like not giving a fuck on Amazon and shit, and it's like it's all to get you to this point of understanding that you are just this speck of dust on a rock that is just a bigger speck of dust in one universe that is one grain of sand on another
in
beach.
Another multiverse.
Yeah, so like, and that's the journey that we're all on, that most people will honestly never reach, is to not only understand...
Well, wait, I want to just make a small correction.
Sure.
That I don't think the intention of self-help books written by white men on Amazon are to help you understand your insignificance. I actually think they do they try to do the opposite, where they try to convince people that they are significant and that their lives do mean something.
Yeah.
And that is why everyone is in McDonald's.
Yeah.
But go on.
No, you're right. I think I was more talking about like the best of the best direction you get in life is to get here. And I mean like Taoism, Buddhism, all of these, like Hinduism with moksha, Buddhism with nirvana, all of these things, it's like getting to this place of accepting that, and then not only accepting that in a moment, like being frozen in that acceptance and like living your life from that place of acceptance. And that's cool and all. But the thing that like no book or no religion seems to talk about is like, what now? Like, I accept that.
Yeah.
I accept that this is a simulation. And like, what, once you accept that, you have peace, but there is nothing to celebrate and there is nothing to mourn, because one, I didn't do anything. So what am I celebrating? What am I proud of? What feeds whatever like ego complex exists in this mammal brain of mine? And then what is there to be fearful of? Because there's nothing that you can prevent. And I'm not fully on that train of acceptance of like we have absolutely no free will. I think that generally we mostly don't. But I think what's very interesting to remember, I think like the problem with this like Elon Musk view of the world being a simulation, the like Neanderthal Caucasian view of it, is it's like,
I'm screaming,
very like video gamey, and I don't really think that's exactly how it is. I think it's like just our way to wrap our minds around that idea. But the thing about like this being some sort of greater tapestry and like all these roles play out is that I do believe in God, and I do think that God is like a very human person, and there is, so
he's not omnipotent, he's not omniscient.
He is to us.
He's just another nigga.
She or he is to us, but like
I think he's a guy,
right?
I don't think a woman would create a universe this ghetto.
That's I respect that opinion, but well, I mean, like, sorry, I'm gonna get back to my original point, but like a woman made Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. So anyway,
yes, but that woman was a woman under capitalism, which is a patriarchal concept. So again, even the structures that women exist under are ghetto, which make women consequentially ghetto.
I didn't know that they had reached out to you to do Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. I just didn't mean to come for you like that. I was just, anyway. I think the interesting idea of viewing, like fully accepting that this is a simulation and there is like a moment, basically like the Big Bang is dropping a rock in a lake and we are all the ripples that come as a result of that. And those ripples just keep on expanding and expanding. I think what's interesting is to think that understanding that whoever designed this is very much like us, there are flaws.
I agree.
So like the only way for there to be absolutely no free will would be if the game was designed perfectly. And what do we know about nature that has ever been 100% perfect? So like,
well, that depends on what your definition of perfection is. Because I think even
perfectly
the
intended
idea
and
that
executed, that's what my definition is. So like everything that
okay.
was intended by the creator is how it is going to play out. Because when we create video games, like Instagram Live is supposed to be perfect, but you still get Teddy Riley. Like, you know what I mean? Like, things are, we know how that was supposed to go, but look at what happened. Like, the creators of Instagram thought their live algorithm was perfect and the sound coding they did was perfect, but look at what happened. And I think that we are narcissistic to think that that doesn't happen in our own universe. So to the point of free will, I think why it's very easy, it's very hard to figure out how to emotionally deal with yourself once you accept that there is no free will, because how do you deal with your emotions? Do you when something is hard or when something is challenging, do you just give up and say like, oh, well, this was never for me anyway, you know, like maybe this path?
Well, no, that's fatalism.
I don't see the distinction, but define that.
Okay, so I'm going to say that I believe in determinism, which is the idea that every choice that you have to do anything is preceded by a prior cause,
right,
which is preceded by a prior cause, and it all just goes back infinitely.
Right.
So basically, everything is predetermined, but everything isn't fated to be. So I'll give an example.
Yeah, that's okay. I get what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if, for example, you have an audition, you're an actor and you have an audition and you get the part, now you're a successful actor. That wasn't fated to be, but that was predetermined. And the difference is that in order for you to have gotten the part, you had to have gotten out of bed, and then you have to have gone to the audition, then you had to have done a good job at the audition, and then you had to have also just been in the mood to do a good job.
Yes.
And. Fate, on the other hand, entails that even if you hadn't gotten out of bed, you would have still gotten the part.
And you do or don't believe in that?
I don't believe in fate, but I do believe in determinism, because determinism requires a causal chain of actions, whereas fate doesn't, which is why I agree with your idea of an imperfect God and an imperfect universe, because I think it's compatible with determinism, but I don't think it's compatible with fate. And I think a lot of people conflate the idea of fate and determinism, which is also what puts people off of the idea that there is no free will, because people immediately jump to fatalistic ideas that like, oh, well, if everything is already fated to be, then what's the point? And I don't need to get out of bed. But you do need to get out of bed because all effects depend on causes. And determinism is reliant on a chain of causes, whereas fate, which is a religious idea, relies on the belief that, like, how do I put it? Fate relies on the belief of magic.
Yes.
And it relies on a belief that you are so completely separate from your actions.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that. I think we're all accountable for our actions. We're not responsible for our actions, but we're accountable for them because we own ourselves. We are the possessors and owners of the consciousness that makes us feel responsible for our actions.
Okay, so and I thank you for defining that definition between determinism and fatalism. I actually never knew that. But those are, so I understand these things conceptually, and what I'm interested in now is the dissonance that occurs from taking those things to heart and
what do living. You mean?
Because, all right, so your example of the audition, because the way that I find the motivation to get out of the bed in the morning is the idea that, like, you have a destiny, you have dharma, but you have to show up for yourself. And to the people who end up, there is an eerie sensibility about people who you look at and you're like, you are supposed to be something better than this. Do you ever feel that way? Like, you ever look at people, you ever look at Azalea Banks and be like, yo, you were supposed to change the world. What happened with you? Like, oh,
that's so interesting. And I actually don't get that feeling.
I get that feeling with a lot of people.
But explain to me why you do.
And I chalk that feeling up to,
you didn't show up to your
no. It's not their fault. No, it's a problem with the simulation. It's like a fuse one of the dominoes didn't fall. A fuse forgot to just, like, it's something you see when, like, you program a lot of algorithms. It's like, oh, this was supposed to trigger this, but it didn't reach the right action potential, and it didn't, like, a circuit fried out, and, like, that person didn't become, and it's because, like, I think what Western religion really sells people is this idea of, like, divine consciousness. And I think that, like, once you really realize that, like, everything we feel, everything we are are a result of neurochemical mechanisms and impulses and synapses and all these things, all of these wired things. Like, if that person doesn't get out of bed to go to that audition, that is a result of
a glitch in the simulation.
It's a result of maybe not enough dopamine was like flooded in their synapses at 8:28, and 8:30 is when they had to hop in the shower. So like, because and I think it's really important to not hold, like, I don't get the idea of accountability anymore, because like, if the Big Bang happens and then like carbon and hydrogen and all of these things are put out into the universe, and then a couple hundreds of billions of years later, here we are made of all those same elements, and like all of those things just were put out into the universe and arranged into us eventually, and arranged into that person with the audition that morning, and then like that thing in their synapse, that bit of dopamine didn't happen to fire enough of it to get them out of bed that day. I don't see how that's their fault.
That's interesting. So I don't see that as a glitch in the simulation. No, I see that as just another causal.
It's not a glitch
chain. Yeah.
It's up to us whether we perceive it as a glitch or a feature.
Right. Yeah.
But I can understand how someone created us with a lot of intention and purpose, and Instagram created Instagram Live with a lot of intention and purpose, and Teddy Riley still did what he did. You know what I mean? Like you can create some like error, randomness, all of these like concepts that are clearly innate to the universe. Like they are not factors that can ever be taken out. And I think that like that eerie feeling of being like, man, like, why wasn't this person what they were supposed to be? Why wasn't Little Richard considered the creator of rock and roll while he was alive? Like, I view these as like flaws and like things, action potentials that were supposed to fire but never did. And I think that there's just like a lot of these natural occurring glitches, but like 99% of the time we are on this pre-chosen path. But like, your ability to show up for yourself on your own path, when you fail to do so, I don't know what to chalk that up to other than like system failure. It's like when Google Chrome just quits on you randomly. Like, it's just you quitting on yourself due to no fault of your own.
Yeah, I still don't see that as a flaw though, but I see what you mean.
It's intentionless. It's random. It's not a flaw.
I believe in randomness. I believe in quantum randomness, but I think that's like 2%. And even that, I think, is part of the design of the simulation. I think we were created with intention, but not necessarily purpose. Yeah. I think literally the only purpose of human existence is just to exist.
Yeah.
In the same way that like the only purpose you would sing a song is not to get to the end of the song, but just to sing a song. Yeah. And I think sort of borrowing like Watchmen's idea of God, I think God is just like a 12th dimensional version of you.
Yeah.
And me and us and all of us. And he's just sitting in the 12th dimension, omnipotent and omniscient. And he got bored of the monotony of knowing everything. Basically. And being able to control everything. So he created us little humans, and he created this reality for us where there's just enough tension and friction and hardship and suffering and also possibility. No, not even to learn something from, but just to experience what it's like to be alive. You can't possibly be alive if you already know everything that's going to happen, and if you have all the power to orchestrate everything that's going to happen. You must just be part of the river, but you can't orchestrate the river in order to experience it. And I think the only purpose of God is to experience what it feels like to be alive through us. And that's not necessarily like, so there's no destination, there's nothing to learn, there's no purpose per se. I just think it's all experiential, which is also why I don't think that anything is good or bad or even a flaw, because I think even like the 1% of quantum randomness that exists in the universe is just part of the design. So how could it be a flaw?
It could be something not intended by the creator.
But he didn't say, like, I want Azealia Banks to win a Grammy. He just said,
no, what if he said
want
that?
Azealia. No, I think God just made Azealia Banks and was like, I want this human to just experience existence. And here are all the ingredients. You're going to have this much serotonin. You're going to be born into this family at this time. Yeah. And you're going to be black. You're going to be dark skinned. Like he just put in all of the ingredients and it just plays out. But he has no purpose or goal for Azealia Banks. So he just wants to experience what it's like to be Azealia Banks.
You think in the show of reality he wrote the character descriptions but not the plot? That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Interesting. I think he wrote both.
Interesting.
But no.
Wait, but if he wrote both, then everything is fated.
He wrote the character descriptions and he wrote the show Bible. But
What's the show Bible?
It's like like the show Bible of something like The Leftovers would be like 2% of the people leave the world, and it's like
like a summary.
Not a summary, like what are the odds and ends of this universe? Like there's a Department of Sudden Departures, there is a town called Mapleton, there is a town called Miracle. Like it's the framework to which the plot can exist in. It's the universe of the show. So
okay.
Yeah, in the instance of what you believe, like, all right, he didn't write Azealia Banks wins a Grammy, but in that instance he would have written like colorism is a thing, racism is a thing, success is a thing, like dopamine is a thing. Like because I do think from what I see, things are too intricately designed. Like things are very intricate, like the forces at play are very intricately designed. But I don't know, some days I believe the thing that I think no religion like actually asks is like, what is God getting out of this? like if this is an investment, right? Assume he is us, because why wouldn't he be us? Why would you make such a big investment without thinking of what I'm going to get out of this? Because if we're made in his image, he's just as selfish as us. So like if he's investing in this condo complex of he's like literally putting up all the funds, he's putting up all the creative direction, he's doing everything.
Yeah.
Why do you make something? Like why do great artists make albums? You make something to hopefully express yourself and learn more about yourself.
But isn't that just a product of capitalism?
Isn't what?
Isn't like expectation and purpose just a product of capitalism? Like if we didn't live in the system that convinced us that we need to be productive and we need to have a reason and purpose and
I'm talking about like
outcomes.
I think purpose precedes capitalism.
Interesting. Why do you think that?
The oldest...
Wait, does purpose precede religion? Like if religion...
Simultaneous.
And capitalism is a religion. But if like Christianity, none of this existed, do you think people would still buy into the idea, not only of purpose, but just like outcomes? Thank you for listening to the first half of this conversation. If you're interested in listening to the rest of this conversation, you will find it on Patreon. So please support my Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/bobosvoid, or you can just click on the link in the description box below. If you enjoyed this conversation, I'll be having so many more of these types of conversation with different friends, with different strangers, with all types of interesting people, and sometimes just conversing with myself. If you are interested in philosophy, politics, race, all the things, I'll be hosting all the conversations on my Patreon. So patreon.com/bobosvoid, or just click on the description box below and support me. Thank you.